whether you're in arts or you're in something else, to me, I think there's like this search in all of us to become the full version of ourselves. And so how do we do that?
I love the idea of looking at the lyrics and saying, what's the emotion in this? What did the composer think? Or what do you think? What in your life relates to this?
So for me, it was a big thing discovering Black composers because they use his poetry. So I knew about this poetry, but I didn't have any music.
These cultural aspects that I wasn't aware of and that I've actually been put closer in touch with through this whole period of looking into the Harlem Renaissance and actually reading the poetry of Langston Hughes and realizing that this is also my heritage.
Yeah. So it's sort of in the shape. Yeah.
It has so many levels, actually.
Langston Hughes is a poet that I've always been drawn to because he's like me. He's speaking from an experience of being African-American and European in descent.
This idea of bringing the common heritage into one work that is beautifully reflective of the Harlem Renaissance itself, which is this melting pot of what stylistic things we have that we're bringing to the table and the tension that we feel in the middle of the historic time, and all of that exploding into traditional jazz. It speaks to our kind of mixed cultural heritage in a way, and it speaks to the moment of the Harlem Renaissance where it is this sort of churning, spinning of what else can happen when these elements are put in the same room. What else can happen?
The era of the Harlem Renaissance, the formative place where traditional jazz was shaped into what we're familiar with today.
You could point to a certain period in time where this happened and where it was bubbling with the energy and actually changing society. Part of what Langston Hughes' poetry is doing is presenting the African-American life.
All of this came from like human need to express something.
It's all just an expression of rawness and vulnerability, absolutely.
Jeg synes det naturlig å komme inn igjen med deg på 8 der.
I'm willing to be like, in this moment, I'm going to risk. I'm going to just decide to be my full self and share that.
Expressing that vulnerability when you connect with an audience and you see the faces in the crowd that are quietly communicating that they've received and they've seen some of themselves in what you're bringing, then there's so much more freedom in that and safety in that, honestly. So yeah, it's vulnerable, but in like an incredibly enriching way.
The essence of Langston Hughes' words and other artists of his time became the foundation of what grew into the American Civil Rights Movement.
That's also something that has surprised me, how much it resonates with my experience, being rooted in different cultures. That feeling of always being separated from part of your identity.
Yeah, it's a very human thing that we're dealing with. Yeah. And I think it's really important to process through the poetry, through the conversations with the other, singers. If we have the same heritage and experience of the poet, in a way, a duality of culture, looking like one thing and maybe being another. And we have that in a way in common with everyone because we're all more than we appear.
Why don't you blush, oh shameless moon?
But to have it articulated and in this particular cultural lineage and experience, I think to take time to talk about it and to process it can only give us power, can only give us healing.
Is a positive source for people who can tap into different cultures and different parts of their own history.
The souls
So when I connected with Siv, then I thought, ooh, I have this piece I'm longing to hear in an opera singer's voice. You try. And that just was like really just a powerful moment of, okay, we need more of this, you know. And we obviously both resonate with the heritage, so that was totally classical. And then I saw Weary Blues, and I was like, this one wants to be sung, but it's not a classical singer. This is a bluesy song. So I just wrote it as I felt like it needed to come.
And I feel like the world, how it views me, has also changed. But is that going to define who I am? And I think that's a lot of what his poetry speaks to for me.
And it's actually a starting point for conversation.